Hey everyone, Wiggles here. In this video, I'm going to go over all the classes in Baldur's Gate 3 to help give you a better idea on what to roll in your adventure. This video is a long time in the making. I've been wanting to play each class for a while, just so I could give you a good opinion on each of the classes. No matter if you're D&D pro or just starting out, there will be something useful in this video for you. Let's get started. First off, after you're done creating your character, the only thing you can't change is your race. So if you don't like the class that you first initially created, don't worry because you can always change your class. If you're wondering how to change your class in the game, check out this video that I've created. I'll also leave it at the end of this video. You're also able to add a second custom character if you have two different controllers as well. If you're curious on how to do that, check out the video up on the screen now, and I'll also leave that video at the end of this video as well. So lastly, you are able to multi-class in this game, but I would only do that if you're a pro. There's a lot of useful reasons why you'd want to multi-class. For instance, a few levels in fighter, you can get action surge, which gives you 2 action per turn, or getting to level 3 in various classes for one of the bonuses in their subclass. Each level you get in this game gives you really big improvements. So overall, to create your character, you go to custom character. You can do one of these origin characters, but they're tied to their race and class, although you can change their class as well. But let's just go make a custom character. And the race features actually do help a lot as well. So choosing the right race for the playstyle that you want to play also is super useful as well. But this video is for classes. So there's 12 different classes in this game and 46 subclasses. The first one is Barbarian. They're a very strong class. As a Barbarian, you get many proficiencies in different weapon types and armor types. Their unique action is a rage, which is very useful. There's various ways that the rage can benefit you in battle. They have 3 different subclasses. They have the Berserker, the Wild Magic, and Wild Heart. This is a really fun class, really strong on the battlefield. You get multiple attacks as well, tons of hit points, and it's really fun to just rush into battle and not really care if the enemy sees you and then end up destroying them anyways. Next up, we have Bard. They're a very supportive class in this game. They focus on buffing their allies and debuffing their enemies, and they gain proficiencies in many different weapon types, but they can only wear light armor. Cantrips are very useful in this game as you don't have to use a spell slot, and the Bard class allows you to have an instrument while you're playing, which adds a bit more music to the game. This class may seem weak at first, but as you start leveling up, you'll notice that this is one of the strongest classes in the game, especially if you know what you're doing. They have 3 different subclasses: the College of the Lore, the College of the Swords, and College of Valor. And no matter what subclass you're going to take with this class, you're going to find that they're going to be a very useful asset to your team. Next up is Cleric. Clerics are a very strong supportive type class that can also be built out as a damage class, but they're definitely known for their healing in this game. While they can debuff their enemies, they mostly know to buff their allies more and more to win any battle they see. As for weapons, they can't use as many weapons. They can use simple weapons and morning stars, and they can use up to medium armor, as well as a shield. Clerics have 7 different subclasses known as domains. You could do life domain, light domain, trickery domain, knowledge domain, nature domain, tempest domain, or war domain. These domains help build out either if you want to be more healing or more utility or more damage, and adds a lot more variety to your class. Clerics are definitely one of my favorite classes in this game, as they can help your party out of many sticky situations. Moving on to Druids. Druids can be built out as a healer or a damage dealer. They have a lot of utility in this game, and they're not so much focused on buffing allies and debuffing their enemies, but the amount of utility that they can provide their party with is very useful to have on a squad. Druids have proficiency in clubs, daggers, javelins, maces, quarterstaffs, scimitars, sickles, and spears. And also they can wear up to medium armor with shield. They can shapeshift into various different forms, which becomes really fun later in the game. And they have a lot more options through wild magic than some other classes have. They can cast a few more spells than the Bard and Cleric can to deal their damage, while also shapeshifting into things like an owlbear to jump on their enemies and constantly knock their enemies further and further down the fight. They have 3 different subclasses you can choose. You can be the Circle of the Land, Circle of the Moon, or Circle of the Spores, whereas one focuses on healing, one focuses on shapeshifting, and another focuses on more utility damage. But this is definitely a really fun class to choose. It might not be top tier, but it's definitely really fun to play. Now moving towards the fighter. Fighters have mastered the art of combat. Fighters can use simple weapons and martial weapons, which consists of many different weapons, and they can use up to heavy armor with shields. And they're a very strong class with different skills. They're one of the best classes for melee focused attacks, as right off the bat you get second wind, which is a great heal for yourself. And at level 2, you also get Action Surge, which is really useful for having just a second action during your fight. Fighters have 3 different subclasses: the Battle Master, the Champion, and the Eldritch Knight. All these subclasses can change up your gameplay a lot, making you more damage focused, more tanky focused, or one more melee and magic focus. Next up we have Monk. Monks can do a ton of damage in this game. They're definitely a melee style glass cannon, although this glass cannon can actually have a really high armor class as well. They have many ways to do bonus attacks, and they can debuff their allies in various ways. They're really easy to build out, because most monk builds you actually don't need any weapons on them, since some builds focus on unarmed strikes, but they can't use any armor in this game unless you spec in it in your feat. And they can only use simple weapons and short swords as well. They have 3 different subclasses: the Way of the Open Hand, the Way of the Shadow, and the Way of the 4 Elements. The Way of the Open Hand can make you do way more physical damage. The Way of the Shadow is really good for sneaking around, and the Way of the 4 Elements is a bit more magic focused. Next we have Paladin. Paladins can heal in this game, but they are a bit more damage focused than the Cleric is. You can build them out to be a tank as well. Paladins have 3 different subclasses, with an additional 4th subclass hidden outside of the character creation screen. The 3 subclasses are Oath of the Ancients, Oath of the Devotion, and Oath of Vengeance. Oath of the Ancients focuses on healing. Oath of the Devotion focuses on dealing damage back to the enemies and dealing more damage to the enemies. And Oath of Vengeance focuses on buffing your allies and debuffing your enemies. The way to get your 4th subclass is by breaking the oath, becoming an Oathbreaker. Paladins can use simple weapons and martial weapons, as well as use up to heavy armor with shields. Next up we have Rangers. Rangers are a unique class focusing on archery. You can also build out the Ranger to do damage melee as well. They have some magic along the way, and they also can tame a beast. These beasts are really cool because they look way different than any other familiar that you can make in the game, and they can help you a lot out in battle. Rangers are unique in the fact that they can choose a certain enemy to be better against, and they can even get more of these as they level up in the game as well, and they have more resistances than a regular class as well. Rangers have 3 subclasses in this game that can change up the class a lot. They have the Beastmaster subclass, which really focuses on having a better beast tamed. They have Gloomstalker, which focuses on stealth. And then they have Hunter, which focuses way more on archery and just dealing raw damage from afar. They have proficiencies in simple weapons and martial weapons, and up to medium armor with shields. Next up we have Rogue. They focus a bit more on stealth, assassin related attacks, and even melee attacks. Rogues are a very useful addition to your party as they have really good sleight of hand, so they can easily be your lockpicker for your team. The 3 subclasses for rogues are Arcane Trickster, Thieves, and Assassin. Arcane Trickster kind of focuses a bit more on magic, whereas Thief gives you an extra bonus action and focuses on the stealth and deception side of things. And Assassin is really useful for assassinating targets one at a time. This is also a really easy class to get good at. There's not many spells involved with the Rogue, so if you're very new to the game and you're worried about all the different spells in this game, Rogue is definitely a great option. Now we're moving on to the Sorcerer. The Sorcerers are a really cool mage type class in this game. Sorcerers can't use any armor types. They can use the clothing, but they can use daggers, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. They have 3 different subclasses: Wild Magic, Draconic Magic, and Storm Sorcery. Wild Magic is really unique in the sense that you can just burst with a random spell and hit everybody around you. There's a lot of advantages with this subclass too, which is great for hitting critical strikes. And the addition of the Wild Magic Surges definitely make this class a wild card. The Draconic Bloodline makes you a bit more tankier than the other 2 subclasses, as you have dragon-like scales to improve your armor class, and you also increase your hit points by a maximum of 1 for each sorcerer level. Storm Sorcery offers for way more utility, as you're able to fly around as a bonus action, which allows you to do it very often. Sorcerer is a really fun class. They also get something called sorcery charges, which allows for many different varieties of magic as well. Moving further through the mage list, we have the Warlock. The Warlock is the classic dark mage type class. Warlocks, unlike the other 2 mage classes, can use simple weapons as well as light armor. The Warlocks specialize in debuffing their allies as well as dealing devastating damage spells to the enemies as well, with 3 different subclasses. You can be the Fiend, the Great Old One, or the Archfey. The Fiend focuses on buffing themselves and dealing more damage, while also getting more temporary hit points whenever they kill a creature. The Great Old One focuses more on debuffing their enemies by using enchantment spells. Whenever you land a critical hit against a creature, The enemies must succeed a wisdom saving throw or they'll become frightened, which is a really great debuff to have constantly on the battlefield. And lastly, the Archfey can debuff their enemies in different ways as well, with things like sleep and fairy fire, and they also get Fey presence, which charms or frightens nearby foes. This class uses something unique to the spell slots, where there isn't different tiers of spell slots like most other classes, but everything's just noted as a Warlock spell slot, and you regain these spell slots more frequently than the other classes. You don't get as many spell slots, but you're able to regain them pretty frequently. And lastly, we have the Wizard. The Wizards are known to be the most raw magic class in this game. They have the most amount of spell slots, and they're able to do something called Arcane Recovery, which will replenish a spell slot while auto combat. You can do this once every short rest, but you're not able to restore a spell above the 5th level. Wizards have a ton of utility with spells like Grease and Sleep, as well as they get different cantrips to be able to always cast a spell and be able to cast devastating magic spells, especially as you start leveling up in this game. Wizard has 8 different subclasses, which you can find at level 2, which are the Abjuration School, the Conjuration School, the Divination School, the Enchantment School, the Evocation School, the Illusion School, the Necromancy School, and the Transmutation School. All these subclasses can change up the class a lot, providing the Wizard class with many different options in this game. The amount of spell slots and spells that the Wizard can choose is unparalleled to the other classes, giving them many different spells that they can use in their arsenal constantly in their fight. But that's it for me in this video. I hope it helped you out. If it did, please give this video a like to tell YouTube it's a good video and allow this video to show to more people like yourself, as well as subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.